Alright, so here we are. It's May 8th today. I'm fertilizing this field right now. This is about a half-acre field. This is all going to be soybeans this year. This is the 0060 fertilizer. I'm putting 2 bags. I've already put a bag down. This is the second bag of it. And then the third bag is going to be the 92631 fertilizer. It's got a little bit of the phosphorus in there too. On the other side of that brush is about a 1 acre food plot. That's going to be corn and beans. And then behind me here, this is a new area we just plowed up this year. Just a really small spot. That's going to be corn, and that's all going to be corn. You can see that's all sprayed off right there. So yeah, I'm going to get spreading here. You can see I already got some of it on the ground here from the first bag. So well, we just got all this planted into corn. Just a little triangle piece. Like I said earlier in the video, this is a brand new spot. We've never planted before. We just plowed up the sod a couple weeks ago. That's going to be corn right there later. That's a kind of a wetter area. And then here's the field that's going to be split up between pumpkins here in the front and soybeans on this end, which I'm going to plant right now. So let's get planting. Well, it's been a really long time since you've seen this area. I'm not even sure if I even did a single update until now, but this is that little tiny brand new triangular spot that in previous years has just been like grass and weeds, and it's right next to this other corn spot. Anyways, first year ever planting here. We plowed it up this spring. And then this is the first area of corn I planted. So this is the stuff that's the furthest along on any of the corn here. You can see some of it's just starting to tassel out. It came in good, but the cranes pulled out a lot, so I kind of came back in, and there's a little bit of shorter stuff in here that I hand drilled after the cranes pulled out. But it's gonna work out. I mean, it's a little thin, but that's all right. I did seed in a few brassicas. It would have been like a week and a half ago or so in some of the thin spots because there wasn't many weeds coming in, but now there's quite a bit of weeds. We just got a ton of rain. I mean, this is probably only at the biggest probably only an eighth of an acre. You can see it goes right to the edge of these tree lines, and then the hay fields on the other side. Just a tiny little spot. Some of this shorter stuff right here that's pretty thick is all from me hand drilling it back in after the cranes pulled it out, but this taller stuff that's starting to grow ears is the original planted stuff. You can see there's some gaps in here, but it's looking pretty darn good. As thin as this stuff is, it should have some really big, good-sized ears. Here's the biggest hole in the field. I did put some brassicas in here, but I'm not really seeing them coming up, so I don't know. But yeah, looking good. I'll take you over to the bean spot just up in that field right there, and then we got another bean spot out one of our other fields. That field right up there I'll take you to next is the field that's half beans and half pumpkins, and the same thing with the other field further out. We got two fields like that. But here's the edge. So I'll take you over to the bean spot next. Well, right behind me here are the beans. Pumpkins that way. These beans look pretty good. Really good, actually. I didn't know how well this was going to turn out when we planted them, because I didn't know it until I was done planting. But the one, we have a 2-row planter, an old 2-row corn planter, and one of the sides wasn't, it got jammed up, or I think it was still spinning, but it wasn't putting out seed. And I noticed that when I was done, and I was like, oh crap. So I think I mentioned it earlier in the video, but I'm not sure. What I did then is I basically had a field. It's set up at 38-inch rows, and I double planted, so it would have been, if I would have left it, it would have been beans at like 38-inch rows. So I didn't want that, so I came back, I broadcasted a whole bunch of beans, and then just dragged them all in. So it still ended up being a little bit thinner than I wanted it to be, because I knew there'd be a lot of weeds here, because we'd never sprayed here before. This was always pumpkins in the past. And anyways, there is some weeds in here, but it's really not that bad considering, you know, what it could have been. I had to spray this twice. I had to come back and kill a lot of the water hemp, but there is a few weeds. But these beans are looking really good considering how thin they were planted. Some of these plants are really starting to bush out because they're so thin. I bet you some of these plants will, by the end of the growing season, will like literally have probably stems the size of like my thumb or whatever. Like they're gonna be really thick because they're really bushing out. And a lot of them they're in full flower mode, and they got lots of pods on them. You can see a little cluster of weeds there, and then there's just a scattered amount of these water hemp weeds throughout the whole plot. And there's a good amount of deer browse in here too. Like this, see how thick that plant is already at the base? Because there's nothing around him, it's just one plant there. And you can see all the pods starting. All the extra flowers. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. I mean, I was getting kind of worried. I mean, it was pretty thin. This is probably, this whole field is a half acre, I know that for sure. So this is probably about, maybe about a third of an acre. The soybeans are about probably like 60% of this field. So with this here, about a third of an acre of beans. That's probably about a half acre of corn, those two spots down there. This is our last reserves, I guess you could say. This is the food closest to the road. Probably going to be the last food available, or some of the last food available out here this winter. So you can see this plant out on the edge here by itself. It's really like bushing out and adding a whole like extra branches. And see how thick that one is too. Or if they're, when beans are planted thicker, they just grow straight up. But yeah, looks good. I'll take you out to the last spot in the video. And you can see this on the edge. See how this is yellow? That's a potassium deficiency because, you know, it's just close to the grass. When I was broadcasting with a little cart, I didn't really want to drive that close because then I was gonna, you know, be spreading a whole bunch on the grass here, wasting it. That's definitely what that is. I remember seeing that in our soybean plots before we started fertilizing, like about 3 years ago. It's kind of interesting to see that all the way up down, all the way down this edge. See that? That's soybeans with no fertilizer. It might be a little shadier here, but you go in a couple feet to where they got fertilizer, and they're about knee to thigh high right there. A couple big weeds in there too. But overall, this stuff is really looking good. You know, with all this extra rain we got, I mean, it's really gonna take off here. This stuff will be waist high, definitely by the end of the growing season. So I'll take you to the last plot. It's way on the other end of the property, so I'll see you over there in a little bit. Well, here we are. This is the last soybean spot in the video. These beans, as you can tell, aren't nearly as tall. I believe this was planted probably about a week after that first soybean spot I just showed you. And they're considerably shorter. The other ones were easily up to my knee. There's definitely more browse in this plot and probably more weeds. You can see all the weeds. And it's hard to see on the video, but quite a bit of grass in here. And then there's a lot of that water hemp everywhere. Lamb's quarters. It's looking alright. I mean, it could definitely look better, but the pumpkins are all over there. Those pumpkins look amazing in this field. I don't know why. The pumpkins look better here and the soybeans look worse here, but the other field, the soybeans look better and the pumpkins look worse. Anyways, you see they're definitely a little bit behind. Like I said, they were planted a little bit later, but yeah, it's considerably shorter. This is about just a hair over a half an acre. It's pretty close to 3/4 of an acre, this whole field. So this is probably about, at the very most, a half acre of soybeans. You can see here's a cluster of volunteer corn. We had corn right here in this area last year. And then this wide strip right here, this will be brassicas planted probably in a couple weeks from now. Just a little strip of them in the middle of this field. Sorry about all the glare, but yeah, it's coming along. Should be, you know, a decent amount of food right here for the deer. This is the winter food furthest over on this side of the property. We got a little bean plot up there that was all no-till. That didn't really turn out the best because we had like 3 weeks of no rain after planting. A lot of deer browse right here on them weeds. See that? That's interesting. Anyways, hope you enjoyed the video. Probably have just a few more corn and soybean videos to get out, and then I'll probably update you on all these plots probably later, you know, late August, close to September. By then everything should be pretty much done. You know, the corn will be pretty much, the ears will be done and the pods will all been filled in, so that'll probably be the next time you see this particular plot. So see you then.